So I'm very excited about today. We have, for the very first time, the weekend well-being with the Maven Club. And today I am joined by Karen Ferguson. Hi, Karen.
Hi Nathan, how are you doing?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I'm great. I'm looking forward to just having this time of really focusing on our well-being and it's always good when you do these things because it kind of makes you do it, so it's helpful.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what these are all about. It's about sort of thinking about our well-being because it's easy to let that sort of thing slip under the busyness and the pressures of life to forget about actually have I looked after myself, made sure I'm okay, I'm able to cope with everything that's going on. And that's the purpose of these really on the Weekend Wind Down Show to think about how we can look after our well-being as we enter the weekend. So
Fantastic.
yeah. And would you like to tell us just before we start, since it's the very first one, tell us a little bit about the Maven Club and yourself?
Yeah, I'd love to. So the Maven Club it's a place where people can feel like they belong. Essentially, it's for people who are entrepreneurial or perhaps who work in communication and media, and very much for those who are either on the beginning of their journey, starting out, or who find themselves in a stage where they're growing and they're going into new territory, but also for those people who now work alone a lot of the time. You know, things have really changed, haven't they, in the way we do things, and more people now work remotely. So the Maven Club is there to essentially help people to get going and keep growing. So we've got lots of opportunities for connection, for belonging, for encouragement, for very practical tools to help them to grow in their venture and to grow those ideas really well, in a supportive environment. But also, we do make sure that we focus on the well-being. So, especially for those who are kind of entrepreneurs, you've got all of these ideas and you're going into new territory, and it can sometimes feel really quite overwhelming and lonely. And it can play havoc with your thoughts and your emotions. So we always look to have a focus on just checking in on ourselves and kind of looking after our well-being. So it's great to then extend that into working more with the radio as well.
It's great and great to have you on today. I hope you are doing really well and really excited about this sort of this idea working with the Maven Club and looking at our well-being. What I don't know what we call it. The challenge is of our well-being today.
Yeah, that's a great question, Nathan, because I think the reality is that our lifestyle has changed quite considerably. Just in my lifetime, things are very different. There's the obvious things such as, you know, the rise of social media and connection, that in some ways we're more connected than ever, but probably less connected in tangible ways. And we know that particularly in the Western world, the kind of statistics around loneliness, and issues associated with that are really quite high. So I think there's a lot of challenges where there's a false connection that happens, but that real sort of deep sense of belonging and feeling satisfied is lost. And then I think another thing that is a very real issue for us as well is just that we live in a culture that kind of celebrates busyness as being something to aspire to. And there's always so much going on that we've perhaps lost the natural habit of learning to rest and relax and get a bit more balance, even down to things like, and again, because of the development of technology, you know, when I was little, if you were lucky enough to go on holiday, you kind of went on holiday, and you know, your parents took the time off work and had no idea if the place had burnt down in their absence. They went back when they went back from their holiday. Whereas now I find I have to be really disciplined around what am I doing, what am I accessing, putting an out of office on and trying to carve out that time to have some time away, because you kind of don't escape anything nowadays, do you? So there's a lot of challenges. I mean, we could spend hours just discussing all the various challenges and obviously the rise in mental health issues and all of that. But I think there's some really helpful things that we can take if we can do if we actually just take that time to be intentional, because our well-being in a positive way won't just happen to us. We need to kind of be quite deliberate, and we need to think about how can we develop habits that just become our norm. And I think to start with, you have to sort of be a little bit intentional and you have to set those times aside to do those things. So in this segment, I'm not looking to set unrealistic challenges, but just to kind of get us to stop, pause, think about our well-being, and then maybe set a little challenge that should be achievable, but will help us just to focus on looking after ourselves.
That's really good and so true. So many challenges in today's world. Like you say, one of the things you said there, which really strikes me, is it's really hard to escape the busyness of life. I mean, once upon a time, we wouldn't have a mobile phone with you all the time. Nowadays, we
Mhm.
have smartphones with us pretty much permanently, and because of that and the technology everywhere, it means we can be connected with people much faster and pretty much constantly. But it does also make it harder to take that time to rest and to, I guess, to switch off a little bit mentally or emotionally. It can be quite difficult.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it's so true. So do you have like something for us to perhaps do what could we do in order to help our well-being over the weekend?
Yeah, so on this first one, I thought I really should try and come in nice and gentle and give you something that's something that's natural and free and easy to do. And I think it's important just to state as well that the sort of state of well-being, because it's one of those quite trendy words now, isn't it? So if you listen to or read the World Health Organization, their statement around well-being says health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. And I think sometimes we can think about well-being just as being our mental health. But it's actually so much more than that. And like I said before, I think that we can improve it by being intentional, because the danger otherwise is that our well-being reflects our circumstances. And in life, circumstances will come and go. And as I've got older, I've recognized the reality of things happening in parallel. So it's not really like a season of great stuff, a season that's really difficult. There'll be good and bad things and challenging things and uh, fabulous things all happening in parallel. But if we rely on our circumstances for our health and well-being, then that's going to just keep, fluctuating all the time. And it's really important that we just take that time to think about how do we intentionally work on our well-being and look after our well-being so that the circumstances don't dictate that. So a very easy starting point, I thought, would be just to consider what it means to smile. And with smiling, I don't know. I'm not medically trained, so I'm not going to try and misquote or pretend to be an expert. But I do believe that there's an association with smiling and how that can then impact our well-being as well. And I think that there's sort of some studies, isn't there, around what facial expressions and that type of thing. Um, but the reality is that smiling is free. And the great thing about it is it's contagious. So when you smile, it may or may not have an impact on somebody else in terms of whether you get that smile returned. But there is something so much more wonderful about smiling than frowning, for example. And the likely reaction is going to be much better. So I don't know what your childhood experience was, but I remember sometimes if we went on long journeys in a car, with your siblings, you'd kind of start to see if you could get the attention of other drivers by either waving or doing something silly or just smiling. And we would kind of score it sometimes if you got a reaction. And there is a simplicity sometimes with children, isn't there? That sort of silliness that's just quite contagious. But sometimes, because we've got so much going on, we can forget to smile, and sometimes our go-to face can be quite stern or negative. And so I wanted to just think about the importance of smiling and the feelings that can then come with that when you're intentional about smiling and look at whether there's an opportunity for you to smile at people and to see if your smile is contagious, to see if that evokes somebody else smiling back and what that might look like. Like I already said, it's free to smile, so we don't need to spend any money on this part of our well-being. We can just practice it. We can practice it at home. We can practice it out and about, and we can do that in a number of different ways. So some of the challenges for this weekend, I think, are to think about, firstly, what makes you smile? Actually, to just stop and think, what makes you smile? And then maybe just allow yourself a little bit of time to think about that thing that makes you smile and deliberately think about it and see if it actually then causes you to smile, because there's something that then happens with those, the release of those endorphins and stuff when you do smile. So the first challenge is to think about what makes you smile and then to intentionally think about that in order to kind of evoke those smiles. And then the second challenge, which perhaps is a little bit scarier, is maybe to set yourself a target of how many smiles you're going to give away for free over the weekend. Now, there is the fear of rejection here, because you may well go out, maybe you're doing a little bit of food shopping or something this weekend and you think, right, I'm going to try and smile at 5 people in the supermarket, and you may get rejected. You may get people give you all sorts of strange looks, or they may cross over or go to a different aisle. But how about challenging yourself to set a task of how many smiles you're going to give away this weekend and see if any of them get reciprocated, and then just enjoy that feeling of somebody smiling back. Now, if nobody does, don't give up, keep doing it, because I think it does you good anyway, just to smile. So there is the challenge to smile, the challenge to think about what makes you smile, and the challenge to see if you can give away your smile to others and see if anyone returns that.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Karen. I mean, you're absolutely right. Smiling is so very good for not just ourselves, but for all those around us. And it is really nice when one person smiles or laughs, and it spreads joy. It spreads it's a certain uplifts others around you, doesn't it?
It certainly does. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to this challenge.
Yes, it's a good one. I think so many of us kind of fall into the trap of just being a bit, not so much deliberately sort of frowning, but we could just fall into that as an automatic expression because it's safe and nobody's going to notice us. But smiling, like you say, does in a way, you fear a bit of rejection. It makes yourself slightly vulnerable, but it's well worth it because you might be able to spread a smile to somebody else. And if we could all do that, I think it would make this world a much, much more smiley place.
Excellent.
Well, thanks so much, Karen. I look forward to speaking again next week.
Thank you.
Did you know Pure 24/7 Radio has a shop? Well, we do. You can buy merchandise while supporting the work that we do here. Simply head over to www.pure247radio.org/shop. That's www.pure247radio.org/shop.